Hey, it's time for the Maximum PC No BS podcast. This is our 200th episode on the week of April 9th, 2013. On today's epic show, we'll be discussing the 200th episode. We are giving away a kick-ass Maingear and AMD PC, and also we'll also be discussing the AMD Radeon 7990, Microsoft hints at an always-on Xbox. We look at the Razer Edge. We have our picks, your questions, and Gordon's rant. Strap yourself in. Here we go. All right, thank you so much for listening. We are super stoked to be here making this podcast for you guys today. With me is our core staff. We have online Managing Editor Jimmy Thang.
Hello.
We have Associate Editor Tom McNamara.
Hello.
And of course, over here, trying to hack the planet is Gordon Mah Ung, Deputy Editor.
Hello.
Now, in case you guys can't hear this on the podcast, but we are actually doing video for this episode. So I'm looking right at you, camera number 1, and then I'm trying to see camera number 2 right over there.
Yeah, hopefully it works. Okay.
It's right over there too. So this is episode 200. It's a special podcast. We wanted to do something special for you guys. We had a lot of different suggestions, a lot of different ideas,
And some electrical tape.
And so we decided, instead of changing the format or trying to do some sort of best of the last 3 years show, which is pretty much physically impossible for us to go back and listen to all those episodes and try and cull. You're talking about hundreds of hours of listening, right? So, anyways, we've heard you guys asking us to do a video version of the podcast. So on the 200th episode, we thought we would give you guys a try. Hopefully you like it. I'm sure you'll all let us know one way or the other.
It's like, oh, you guys are all so ugly. Go back to podcast only, please.
Yeah. So, maybe it will work out. Who knows? But either way, we're going to give it a shot. So, like we always do, I want to thank you guys for leaving us some reviews on iTunes. We're now up to 356 ratings. Our score is still 4.5 out of 5. I know you guys hate iTunes. We've felt your anger before. As a person who has to use iTunes sometimes, I feel your pain. I know it's a giant piece of shit. But it is where we get most of our traffic for the podcast from. So just to follow the tradition really quickly here, I want to just have some shout-outs for some reviewers real quick. There's a gentleman named, or it could be a female, named DESMIXAIKOU. Does anyone want to take a crack at how that sounds?
I'm having trouble visualizing that.
Yeah. Okay. This person wrote a review on iTunes, 5-star review titled "Freaking Awesome," 5 out of 5 stars. And this will all come together in a second. Just listen. He says, "I just started listening to the podcast. Great info and options and opinions on the newest hardware. I just got to say, I freaking love how raw their language is. There is no filter, and there should be more podcasts like these. Great work, guys." Thank you very much. So the next review I'd like to point out is called "Great Podcast," 5 stars. And this is a guy named DUUKAT, Ducat. Says, "Great for my weekly dose of tech, but I have one complaint. They don't curse as much as they used to, and that saddens me." So...
Well, we don't want to make it artificial.
We need to stay... I don't know what we need to do.
I just don't, swear that much.
So
right.
too much or too little, right?
So
the thing is,
personal.
Gordon sort of does it for the entire staff, basically.
And when I'm driving, I tend to swear a lot, but that's a different story. Yeah.
And Chris isn't here today to do his weekly, he's like a little mini Gordon at this point.
So I swear plenty, but when I'm at work or in a professional setting, I tend to scale it back and... Unlike Gordon. Yeah, unlike Gordon. So, this is sort of more towards the professional side, so I do try to scale it back. And
Sure.
And,
I do not give a shit.
Damn it, Gordon.
Yeah, that's the Gordon soundboard. All right, so here's our final review now. I like to mix it up with some good and some bad, so this is one we can discuss. This is a guy named longtime Max PC subscriber who writes, "I've outgrown this podcast and it makes me sad, Panda. This is interesting. I find it way too long and meandering now. No episode needs to come close to 1 hour."
Interesting.
So he says, "I care less about clock speeds and hardware specs and video cards every day that I move away from hardcore gaming. So maybe this podcast is no longer for me. I used to like Max PC to stay informed But every second spent talking about dual video cards is one I tune out and more. I have a copy of boot issue number 1. Does that entitle me to anything? No. And I used to build my own PCs and game until 4 a.m. But I've grown away from this and no longer find myself... Anyways, he says, please moderate more. Less talk about gaming and hardware and more about the industry trends and software. Which to me is like... longtime Max PC subscriber, we appreciate your feedback, but we try to basically mix it up and keep it kind of hardware.
Yeah, we talk about a bunch of stuff, I feel.
Yeah, we try to keep it focused on hardware, but obviously not every show is going to be a new this, a new that. It's like even today, we're talking about, what we're talking about, let's go look. Today we've got some hardware news, we have some Microsoft news, we have Razer Edge. I mean, like your questions, we kind of try to keep it sort of varied, but...
Maybe he's more interested in sort of the political, technological landscape and stuff like that.
I guess he wants some more analysis of some higher level talk about the industry
trends and stuff like that.
I'm not really sure what industry trends would we talk about.
Well,
we've talked about this before. Remember how there was those rumors that Intel was going to be doing away with LGA and stuff like that? I mean...
Yeah, I suppose, but isn't that just hardware talk?
Yeah, it's really weird.
When Haswell comes out, we'll probably have more high levels to talk about.
Yeah, if he's listening to this, and please leave a comment somewhere and specify what I'm just curious as to what you want us to talk about.
Yeah,
we do read all these comments. We do listen to everyone's feedback. We do try to make everyone as happy as we can. So, all right. So let's just basically jump into our topics here. Now, right at the top, we have episode number 200. This is our 200th episode. Now, of course, the three of us haven't been here for every episode. Gordon has. So this is kind of Gordon's thing. Do you need a tissue?
No.
Do you want to tell us about the podcast, Gordon? I mean, tell us about how it's evolved, what it's been like being here the whole time. Any thoughts you might have?
Well, we originally started the podcast sitting at our desk. I'm not really sure why we started doing it. I think Will came up with the idea to do a podcast, and I think we did it once every couple weeks. It was just kind of fun. We sat at our desk using Skype. Jeremy would, our original podcast producer would. Record all over Skype and then mix it all together to create the podcast. Of course, we've gone through a couple different podcast producers, and now our biggest budget is we're producing ourselves. But it hasn't really changed. I mean, we still talk about hardware. I think we're still trying to keep the flame alive for maximum PC users who care about fast computing, unlike everybody else who only cares about fucking tablets. But it hasn't changed too much. Except that we're now sitting in this room doing it, which is weird because, we did it so long sitting at our desk, and then suddenly we were sitting in this room staring at each other. It was kind of bizarre.
So before, when you guys were at your desk, you guys didn't look at each other?
No, because we sat at our computer. We use Skype. So if you actually go back and listen to a lot of the very, very old Maximum PC podcasts, there's a lot of digital warbling because there would be connection issues with Skype. But honestly, it did sound pretty good. So it's actually pretty impressive you could do that just over Skype.
I like having a studio better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good because, one of the problems we did have is, you'd have 4 people on the podcast, maybe 5 sometimes, and then somebody would start talking. So then I was like, now I can do some work or, Peggle or something like that. And then it'd be like, what do you think? What do you think about that, Nathan? He'd be like, I don't know. So people would lose their concentration. So it's actually probably better we're all sitting in the same room now.
When was the first podcast recorded?
I don't know. I could tell you if I could find it.
Is it still downloadable somewhere, or is it like on a GeoCities site?
I would imagine you can download all of them. Let me see.
Was it around before the website? Because I know the website.
No. The website started, and then we started doing the podcast.
The website's been around for a long time.
We should put all of them on a DVD, and then just maybe somebody will buy it. I don't know.
Wait, you have iTunes?
And if not, we'll have a bunch of coasters.
Gordon?
Yeah, I have an iPod, remember?
Gordon just loaded up iTunes on his laptop. Color me shocked.
Yeah, the best thing about iTunes is it's like you have to go through and make it work, right? It's like, okay, so the first one was January 19th, 2007. Wow. Holy smokes.
Wait, you have all those available through iTunes?
What?
Those are all available through iTunes?
I have no idea. I mean, I've just probably had them in my iTunes collection forever.
You might be the only one who has
What people don't know my iPod story, right? So I had a $200 gift card to Circuit City, Circuit City had melted down. They were going out of business. So I ran to the San Francisco one on Van Ness. And I think the building still says Circuit City. So what am I going to buy? Well, obviously, I don't need a video card. So, and I did not need a dryer and washer. And really, believe me, at the very last days of Circuit City, there was not much left. But there were still
washers and dryers,
iPods. Yeah.
You might be the only person on the planet who has all of the podcasts on
Yeah,
one
maybe
device.
I'll burn them all to a disk. I wonder how many.
You better back that up, man.
I'm sure it's still on the web. I'm sure it's on the website.
It'd be fun to actually go back and listen to that to see what you guys are talking about in 2007.
I'll bet the audio quality is horrible.
No, it was really good.
You should put it in a
first,
file.
it was professionally, when we had Andy, when we had Jeremy, it was professionally produced. So that was nice. And then also really, because it was over Skype, but they were individual streams. So if somebody weren't loud enough, they could actually crank up the volume on one person or compensate if somebody was yelling too much. The funny thing, I think, is you couldn't actually tell. I was actually listening to some older podcasts, and Will and Norm were saying that they were scared because I was yelling about something. Because we would be just sitting in our cubicles, right? We'd be sitting in our cubicles in our office, and then we just would be screaming. So people everywhere else in the building would think it's crazy, but it actually didn't sound like I was screaming, because I think Skype compensates for screaming by lowering the volume. Lowering the gain automatically. So it really didn't sound like he was screaming to me.
And it was therapeutic, so it was a win-win.
Yes.
And can you talk about why you skipped some important podcasts, like I think podcast 150, I think you said it was?
I know, we did release that.
You did?
I thought you said you skipped over it.
It just wasn't released to the public. It's a secret. We did do it. It's a secret. One day we will actually talk about it, I suppose.
It's podcast 200, man. Now's the time.
It's actually on. You can get a torrent of it, but you won't know that's the podcast because you give it the name of like a porn movie, right?
I think 150 got put in a cardboard, or not a cardboard box, but into a wooden crate, and then wheeled into a great big warehouse.
Like an Indiana Jones?
Just like it's where everything goes.
And I heard podcast 100 didn't go so well.
Yes, well, the 100 Classic, these are the highlights. Anybody who's a fan of the podcast should go listen to podcast 100, and then they will immediately not be a fan of the podcast. So you should, if you haven't been listening forever, you may want to listen to 100, and you can hear Nathan singing, which he has always insisted. Nathan has always insisted it wasn't him. It was that we intentionally changed his voice to make it sound like he was off key. Right. So sort of like
that's why I don't
Oswald
sing on
singing
podcasts
Patsy.
anymore, because last time I did it, they changed my voice. I'm not doing it ever again.
Right, no
It's
more
like
singing
backwards
on
auto
podcasts.
tune.
I've been
Right.
compared
Yeah, I was about
to.
to say.
I've been called this generation's voice before, but
I think that was Kanye West.
yeah.
I
It's
swear,
easy to get the two guys confused.
They must all be available on the website.
No, usually iTunes does not do that, Gordon. It's not going to give you. It's not going to let you have 5 years. Well, I don't know. That's not an iTunes thing. I know iTunes is just literally a container that just points shit at people.
Right, but I'm sure they're all on the website.
But it's very, very rare. Although, it's possible. Actually, I installed iTunes and I'm downloading it right now, so we'll find out.
Yes, all the way back to the very first Maximum PC podcast.
On iTunes or on the website?
They're on our website.
On the website.
What date was the first podcast posted?
January 20th, 2007.
Wait a second. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on.
Are you looking for it now?
No, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go back to the beginning and then let's see if we can play just a teeny bit and see what it sounds like here.
I'm just curious. Did anyone use this podcast? I didn't know you used them, but what are your first impressions?
What do you mean by used?
I don't know.
Listen.
Somebody wants to know if anybody listened. I'm sure 12 people did listen. We probably have doubled that to maybe 24 people over the years.
All right, this is what it says under. This is Gordon, Catherine, Dave, Will, and Jeremy discussing Microsoft Vista upgrade, pricing, and volume license.
Oh, damn.
Vista Ultimate Extras unveiled. Wow.
I think the
exciting.
topics have improved since then.
Really exciting. AMD launches DTX form factor, new PCI Express video card, quad effect CPUs, and Netflix launches streaming, and also the iPhone.
Wow.
This is, and then the last thing is the iPhone.
Was it the first gen iPhone?
I didn't know the
First
Netflix
iPhone.
streaming.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is an epic podcast.
I didn't know
right, here-
that Netflix has been
Welcome
streaming
to Maximum
for
PC's inaugural
6
No BS podcast for the week of January 15th, 2007.
Well, you gotta skip this bit because it's pre-recorded.
Well, yeah, that's actually, we have the same music now, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
We should probably update that.
Yeah.
No, it's,
With us this week,
people
are
wait
Gordon
for it
Mah Ung,
updated.
Is it-
editor.
It's like a voice from the
okay.
past.
Catherine Stevenson, also
Will has a
editor.
baby now, by the way. It's amazing.
Dave the Murphy, associate editor.
Hi.
And Jeremy Williams, our podcast producer.
I love new beginnings.
And I'm Will Smith, editor-in-chief of Maximum PC Magazine. So this is our first podcast. We're really excited to kind of have an opportunity to expand on stuff that we don't normally get to talk about in the magazine and kind of get to know readers better.
For Skype,
and,
it sounds pretty
and just
good.
talk about weekly events that maybe may not be worthy of
I'm just skipping
coverage
ahead.
in the magazine. For ladies, don't. And I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Gordon. I mean, you look at the competition. There's,
Well, you're right. Gordon was right.
It's just safe to agree with him sometimes.
Before
50
Will went all
versions of
Mac on
Linux.
us.
For your platform, there's only one. If you're running $159.
I think that was it. Here we go. Intermission.
Yeah,
Wow.
intermission. We
Intermission
can
for
afford
what?
intermission
the
music.
new
Do they have to go to the
PCI
bathroom or
Express
something?
power connector, and I mean the everybody knows. You look at a GeForce 8800.
Wow.
88.
8800.
8800, that's good stuff.
iPhone 1 and Netflix just starting streaming. Doesn't that make you feel old?
Side of PCs, and they don't. Well, obviously. Yeah, but I mean, part of the fun of having a smartphone is you can install all the cool little homebrew apps.
Oh, he said apps, Gordon.
And
Just kidding. All right. I'm closing that up. All right. Well, for everyone listening, thank you so much. And we have lights over here for those of you who are watching on video. If it looks a little bit strange, but we appreciate you guys watching. And then we'll move it right along. All right. So thanks for being here. So let's talk real quickly about, we have two things that are sort of related to AMD. Number one is that they unveiled their HD 7990 2 weeks ago, I think at GDC. Kind of a surprise announcement. I don't think anybody here was really expecting them to do that. And then sort of in parallel to that, we are also running a contest right now on our website through Facebook. If you have not seen it, if you don't go to our website ever, you should check it out. We are going to be giving away a pretty kick-ass system. So let me just start with the HD 7990. Now, unfortunately, we can't go into too much detail because there's a NDA in place here. But what happened was GDC was in town, Game Developers Conference. AMD invited the media down to come see them. I actually declined to go because I was like, yeah, sure, it'll be awesome, And we were in the middle of our publishing cycle here. I was just super busy, and then they sent me the slides, and it said at the very end of the slides, the last slide said, "Oh, one more thing," and it said HD 7990, which we were all taken like totally by surprise because we thought they had given up on that.
Some people might be confused and think that, didn't they already announce the 7990? I mean, you had the double 13 and...
Well, there have been other dual. So this is a dual HD 7970 card. And, last year, the way it happened real quickly was the HD 7970 came out. It was the fastest GPU around because it was going up against the GTX 580 and the previous generation Nvidia cards. Shortly thereafter, so they reclaimed their title. Then shortly thereafter, the GTX 680 came out as the first Kepler board to come out from Nvidia. Then that overtook the AMD card. So that became the fastest card. And then usually they would go through their entire run of cards, and then at the end of that, they would release their dual flagship card, like the GTX 590 or... Anyways, this time they did that ahead of time. I don't know why they did it ahead of time, but as soon as they announced the 680, they also announced about a month later the 690, dual 680 card. And then that came out super, super fast. And then we all waited around for AMD to release their card, and there was rumors that they were going to release it, and they just never released it. So the speculation is that they saw what Nvidia had and they really couldn't match it in terms of performance or heat or noise. Just would not be possible. So they just sort of scuttled it. Meanwhile, Power Color did come out with its own HD 7990. It was called the Devil 13. It was a massively huge, loud, and hot card.
Enormous heat sink, 3 large fans, and it was still really loud under load.
But it was fast.
Yeah,
right?
and then the Aries was really super fast, great performance, but they had to use that integrated water cooling. So there was some extreme engineering going on. Apparently, the impression I get is AMD couldn't figure out how to get it into a 2-slot solution and keep it from melting until, I guess, recently.
Yeah, so there have been 2 other cards. There was the HD 7990 Power Color Devil 13. That's already been benchmarked. We gave it away to our last reader, ironically, in this discussion. So our reader named Preston has that in his home system right now. And then the Ares 2 came out from Asus. That's a water-cooled and air-cooled dual 7970 gigahertz edition. Those cards are already sold out. You can't get one. So we kind of figured, I don't know. Basically, we were at this point with the Titan having come out, we were kind of sitting around thinking, AMD, what are they going to do? And then they had the media on a press conference call like a month ago saying, don't worry, there's new cards coming. And we were like, yeah, okay. We kind of didn't really believe them. And we were all wrong. And the 7990, all they did was hold it up at this press conference and let us look at it. That's all they did.
Was there a release date? I can't remember now.
No. So there's going to be more information forthcoming, but there is an embargo under that information. So
no release date, no price.
No.
Right. But we do know that it needs 2 8-pin connectors.
Right, 2 8-pin. So they released a handful of photos. 2 8-pin power connectors, dual slot, 3 fans. Should be just a normal. I mean, assuming it's just a normal dual 7970. Nothing too fancy inside.
And was it a full shroud thing on top, or was it like an open cowl?
No, it's just a triple fan cooler. So.
Right.
Oh, and the good news is that so far we've seen Gigabyte. This is just on stuff we saw on Facebook. Gigabyte. Oh, you know what? They were announcing a. I'm thinking of something totally different. Sorry, Gigabyte actually announced a WindForce version of the Titan.
Right.
So on the Titan, these add-in board partners were not allowed, or supposedly not allowed, to modify the design at all. So the point I was trying to make was Nvidia. Every Titan you see and every GTX 690, supposedly they all look exactly the same. They all use Nvidia's design. But anyways, so it's possible that AMD might allow their partners they might provide them with a reference board and let them modify it. We'll see.
Or they might just let them modify the cooler, but not the board itself.
Right. So it's pretty exciting times. I mean, I don't know. AMD is like kicking butt. I mean, the card isn't out yet. That's for sure. But AMD is certainly not sitting back and letting Nvidia take all the glory right now.
Now, what is the reason for them making this at this point? Is it just for bragging rights to say, hey, we do have the fastest video card? Because I know the Ares. I believe in your benchmarks, you said the Ares is actually faster than.
It would be a tough card to beat, that's for sure.
Yeah, none of that information is public right now. All we can say is what AMD has released, which is number one is it's the fastest GPU in the world.
Yeah, they said it was like 15% faster than the 690, something like that.
Something like that, and it's also totally. It's like whisper silent.
Well,
that's what AMD has said.
What I like about this news is it shows that AMD is actually still in the fight. And it's kind of interesting because I get in discussions with the readers all the time. They'll say AMD, they got one foot in the grave kind of thing. And like AMD, they've had one foot in the grave their whole life. It seems like, and it usually is when they seem to perform the best is when they're being highly threatened is when they seem to surprise people. So they have 7990. Looks like a pretty good part that NVIDIA doesn't have anything faster than currently when it comes out. We don't know, of course, obviously.
Dual Titans.
Right, but then, maybe dual Titan, who knows, right? Because obviously NVIDIA is not sitting around going, oh, we give up. But the other thing is there's also talk about AMD coming out with their Steamroller core later this year for Opteron, which, you imagine is going to be rolled over to, Phenom, whatever. It could be Phenom 3, who knows what they're going to call it. Or FX, or FX2, who knows? FX. I don't know what the name's going to be, FX2. But I mean, that's actually a good sign because if Steamroller is actually faster, FX wasn't a bad part. It's actually somewhat competitive. But if Steamroller comes out and that's somewhat competitive with Intel's parts, and they're also fighting on the graphics side with Nvidia, I think it's good for everyone because competition makes things better, right?
Well, yeah, nobody would ever say that they want AMD to go away or they want AMD to lose. People do tend to be they tend to pick their side and want their team to win, and for whatever reason they're like, Intel's the best, AMD is bullshit. But the people have like in the real world, AMD hasn't done anything wrong to you or to anybody. They haven't personally come to your house and insulted you. So it doesn't really matter to you. We just want there to be a kind of a fair marketplace and not get violated by Intel's pricing. That's all.
Well, what I really want to see more than anything is competition to keep Intel in the game because frankly they've got a new CEO coming in. Who knows whether the person will be promoted from within inside or whether it'll be an external person. But frankly, they're you don't know. They could have an HP. They could have a CEO who comes in and says, we don't care about PCs or something like that. Well, and that would be really scary if you think about it.
Like I said at lunch, the EA CEO just left. He's looking for a job.
Sure.
Intel is looking for a CEO. It could be a really interesting thing if they went into like the maybe you could buy like a base model CPU, then like pay extra for certain performance, kind of like mini transactions.
I understand they're coming out with an always-on technology, so that it only works when it's connected to the internet, so they can verify your clock speed that you're not overclocking.
Makes sense to me.
I'm making that up.
What could possibly be the downside?
What if you could buy what if you could just think about this? What if you bought some sort of base model CPU and then you could basically put your card on? You could basically put down your credit card and it would charge you for how many clock cycles you used per month.
I will bring this up because Intel has tried that.
Really?
Yeah, actually, it's crazy because I think, of course, it happened immediately after, because there's not a conspiracy here, but immediately after I was joking about all the unlocks, because you play Battlefield and you have like no weapon. You have like like a slingshot. It's like, I was saying, what the hell's next? You're going to have Microsoft having you unlock Word, so you can't use left justify until you type 400 words, and you have to unlock. And I was thinking, what's next? Then Intel will start unlocking processors, and they actually had a pilot program where you'd go into Best Buy, or I forget what the exact retailer was. You'd buy a machine. It would have some baseline Pentium. And then at checkout, they could have a card you could buy that, like, would you like more cash on your
God.
CPU or
another thing
or
for Best
activate
Buy
the
to hawk
hyperthread
at you at the register when you're trying to get out of the store.
Right, but I mean, it's kind of interesting because if you think about it, there's really nothing to prevent them from doing this. You could buy a core or a chip with 6 cores on it, and they turn off 3 of them, and you just pay for them as you need, right?
A lot of the time, it's cheaper for them to just create a bunch of CPUs on one wafer and then just lock parts of those CPUs as for different tiers that they want to sell those chips at.
That's what they currently do right now, right? So they bin things out, and their process is so good. A lot of those chips, they could unlock every single one of them. Maybe, you never know. Maybe every single one of them could be a 3070K, right? Everyone could hit 3.9 all day, but they're going to lock them down, so you can't do that. But maybe they'll have that maybe with the CPU always on, right? So you have to connect to the internet.
Hopefully that won't happen. Speaking of, so just one quick note here for everyone listening, and if you don't follow us on Facebook or Twitter, we're giving away a Maingear PC right now. This is a PC that was provided to us by AMD. They just basically said, do you want to give away a system to your readers? And we were like, what kind of system? They said gaming PC, dual HD 7970s, Crysis 3 theme, i7 3770K overclocked.
And what do you mean by Crysis 3 theme?
I mean, the side of the case has a picture of what's this guy's name? Prophet. Has Prophet. He's not wearing any clothes, so it's a little weird. Just kidding.
I was like, wait, what? I've seen it. I'm still confused.
No. So, anyways, I'll give you guys the specs real quick. This is a Maingear F131. So the system was built by Maingear. It's really, really sweet. It's a very strange form factor. If you haven't seen it before,
This is a Silverstone.
Yeah.
Case.
It's like a pillar.
Yeah, it looks like it's a vertical rectangle. So it's like if you took, I'm not sure how else to
motherboard's rotated, I think, like 90 degrees.
Motherboard's rotated. So basically everything in the system goes upward. Air comes in from below it and gets pushed up into the system. All the ports are on the very top. It's solid black with a matte finish, Crysis 3 paint job.
Liquid cooled.
So basically,
does it have ATI video cards?
So it has Radeon HD 7970s in Crossfire. It has a 1 terabyte hard drive. It has 60 gig Corsair caching drive attached to it. 800 watt Corsair power supply. 8 gigs of Corsair Dominator Platinum RAM. It's liquid cooled with a closed loop. Asus Maximus 5 Gene motherboard. I mean, it is a super nice system. Super nice.
Yeah.
What is the MSRP on it?
I think it's around $3,000 or so. So we are giving this away. There's a contest. So if you go to the website and read the rules, the contest involves you answering a very simple question and emailing us the answer. We'll choose the winner from those answers, and then that's going to take place next Friday. So you have 2 weeks. So go to our website, check us out on Facebook, check us out on Twitter.
I must say it's really weird that it's an AMD-sponsored rig, but it has an Intel CPU.
Yeah, I don't know who was involved with the design of it, but I mean, it's pretty kick-ass. I don't think, that's what's funny too, is people out there are like, well, I don't like AMD and stuff, but people generally don't really have an issue with their GPUs. They're pretty good. And right now, especially the HD 7970 is like, depending on what test you want to run and sort of what drivers you're using, it's like between that and the 680, they're either neck and neck, or AMD has a slight advantage. They're really, really close. So even in the CPU world, it's very easy to say, obviously, Intel has the advantage. No one would deny that. In the GPU world, though, they are right there, neck and neck.
Would you say Nvidia still has the better driver support?
Well, it depends, because it's kind of like, I can tell you right now that Nvidia, they update the drivers more often still.
And doesn't AMD have this issue with frame latency on some of their video cards?
Yeah, there's more information coming out about that we can't talk about because of an embargo. But I know that they've acknowledged it. And
That's only in multi-card setups, though, right?
Multi-card setups, yeah. Where basically the frames are coming back to the system with weird timing, so they just, instead of being 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, it's like 1 and then nothing and then 1 and then like 3. Like it's the delay, the interval at which the frames arrive varies from like 20 milliseconds to like 100 milliseconds, back and forth all over the place. So it makes it for a really weird, choppy delivery, but at a very small time interval.
I can't remember the name of the website that discovered this.
Tech Report.
Okay, Tech Report. Okay. Yeah, and then they published an article about it and created some drama. So some people are like, "Oh, it doesn't make a difference." And
what's funny is if you ask people, it's funny. Like it's one of those things where it's so subtle if you play. On some games it's noticeable. So here's the problem with this frame latency is that if the frames are being sent to the system, but the timing in which they're being sent is very weird, the system is still reporting your frame rate as being 40 frames a second.
Yeah.
So when you look at your benchmark, you're like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
When you're playing it, you can notice a very, very, very subtle hitching. It's very subtle.
Right.
It also affects the fluidity of animation.
Right. So most people, if you ask them, have you seen this? They'll say like, I don't know what you're talking about. Other people will say, maybe, and other people will say, yeah. It
is kind of difficult to tell until you compare them, side by side.
Right, and I think probably the other issue is, not everybody runs multi-card. Not everybody runs, most people run Nvidia actually in multi-card. If you look at the Steam numbers, and then also certain games.
The guy who won our Devil 13 emailed me like 2 weeks after we sent it to him, and he was like complaining that certain benchmarks weren't working. I was like, that's how it is when you have dual cards and the drivers don't support it yet. It's kind of
That's why the always run a single fastest GPU is.
I shouldn't say. Let me just correct that in case he's listening to this. His name is Preston. He wasn't complaining to me. We were just. I was asking him how the cards were, how's his system, because he actually pulled a full-on like upgrade for his system. Bought a new case. He bought an 800D Corsair. Like he went all out. So, anyways, we might be following up with him once we get the system all built. But he spent a lot of money and time getting his system ready. So I was just checking in. He was not complaining. It was pretty funny. All right, so that's our Maingear rig from AMD. Thanks to them for providing that to us. Go to our website, check it out. Anyone can win. All you have to do is enter. So
unless you're in Arizona
or Quebec or in the UK. All right. So moving along, there was quite a flap this week. It was kind of funny to watch from the sidelines since we're PCs, but we also whatever. But this is about this creative director from Microsoft. You might have heard something about this. Tom's going to tell us about it.
Yeah, it's Microsoft Studios creative director Adam Orth, and Microsoft Studios, the group, but these days is a publisher and sometimes a developer for Xbox games. And he was talking on Twitter with one or two guys who he's apparently frequently in communication with, and he claims that he was just kind of joking around, kind of teasing him, this buddy of his, and he said, he was talking about how he was kind of baiting the people he was talking to. He said, I want every device to be always on. And then one of the guys tweeted back to him. He said, off the top of my head, I know 5 people whose 360s who have no access to the internet. They would be screwed. And this creative director says, those people should definitely get with the times and get the internet. It's awesome. And although he says he was just kind of joking around, the implication was that because he is one of the creative directors at Microsoft Game Studios, the Xbox 720 might be an always-on console. So it is kind of a leap, but this rumor has been floating around, and Microsoft will not confirm or deny any rumor or speculation. So we've been all aflutter on the internets and the Twitters and the Facebooks trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And they issued an apology, Microsoft did, to the internet.
Did they deny it?
No.
Well, first of all, the guy who was at the center of this, he immediately made all his tweets private.
Okay.
So as soon as this broke, nobody could go back and look at his history. But people had saved a lot of the screenshots. The only way we have any information is because people save screenshots. But his tweets are now protected.
Yeah.
He also removed his LinkedIn account.
Yeah, but it's already peeing the pool.
Yeah.
You can't take it on.
Do you think? Obviously, there's those that we can talk about the always on thing. But do you think in this kind of disaster management situation, it makes sense to shut off your Twitter account? Because it never works. It's already too late. If it's actually on and they're not private, then you can at least.
No, Gordon, because people will start. If someone develops a way for them, because you know what happened. This guy's at the center of this whole controversy. People will just go through. They will start going through every single tweet he's ever tweeted for the last however many years, 5 years, looking for any single. And then they will start pulling up stuff that didn't have anything to do with the current controversy. But when he said something snarky to some girl or something like that, he'd be like, "Oh, he's also this raging asshole." You know what I mean? Like they would just start combing through everything.
His Twitter account probably became useless in a matter of hours. Like I can't use this for anything now because there's all this flack, so he probably had no choice but to shut it down.
So, but do you think actually it makes sense to then just shut it off? Because it just seems like, to me, at least if it's on, you can Twitter to people, my bad, which apparently everybody will take as, okay, that's all right, he said my bad, so it's okay.
I don't know. I think it's kind of a side issue. The real issue here is whether or not the issue here is whether or not the Xbox 720 will have always-on DRM, and whether or not they will allow used games to be played. And Microsoft so far has refused to really say one way or the other, while Sony has come out and clearly said we're not doing that. And the fact that Microsoft hasn't, that it just seems like they are such, given their track record and given everything that's happened lately, just like that they're thinking about it, or at least trying to implement it somehow.
Or maybe they are using this for maximum drama, because now when they have their Xbox 720 launch, people are going to be like, they're going to be sitting on the edge of their seat for them to say, and you have to have it always connected to the internet.
I think they're also going to be pre-hating at this point.
Right, but if you were Microsoft, though, wouldn't you play this, not say anything, make people just kind of like, yeah, you know what, we're just going to torture you, and then come out and say, oh yeah, that was all bullshit, and it's not going to be always on, Then it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. People just instantly forget. But up until the day they announce it, there will be a lot more drama. Now they're going to get attention. Now, if they could have an Apple-like event where you could have like 500,000 people in a stadium to watch them launch a fucking game console, right?
I don't think they're agile. They're an agile company that can make those kinds of subtle movements and subtle decisions.
Why not?
It also has large implications for stockholders too, right?
Right,
but play around with fire like that.
Well, but at this point, what could you do? Right? If they didn't do it and they come out and say no, he's wrong, then people are like, okay, that's cool. Then there's no more drama,
Yeah, but that's a safer bet for a company as large as them.
Is it?
This will be, you know what's funny, Gordon? This is kind of like Gordon has this argument about Windows 8 that Windows 8 is such a pervasive operating system that even that the people's opinion does not really matter.
Right.
It's that we can all sit here and go, "This is bullshit. I hate this OS," but eventually, like any other like some sort of like cancer or whatever, it'll just sort of take over, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, I don't think cancer is the right word.
The sales figures indicate that Windows 8 actually hasn't penetrated that much, at least compared to
Vista even.
Yeah, it's getting outdone by, I think, even Vista and Windows XP, which are at this point pretty old operating systems.
Sure.
So Windows 7 is still the dominant.
Windows 7, XP, and Vista also launched.
Windows XP, you know, Windows.
Though.
This is a side tangent, but you know, Windows XP support is ending in 1 year.
Yeah.
So all those people running that OS are, anyways, it's kind of a side tangent. Maybe we'll talk about it next time. But
right.
all those people using netbooks have to basically upgrade if they want support.
Yeah.
Anyways, fuck. So anyways, but the point is that this Xbox DRM always on thing is sort of analogous to Windows 8. The people who out there who want to buy the Xbox are not going to be happy with this.
If it's true.
If it's true.
I guess just to make sure it's clear, what my feelings on Windows 8 is, at some point in about 2 years, everybody will be running Windows 8. It'll be slightly modified. They'll be running whatever, and you won't even remember what you were upset about.
Or
I mean, here's the last thing.
No.
Windows 8 has greater market share than every single new Macintosh sold, right?
Well, it's not
10
saying
point
much.
whatever. Yeah, but still. I mean, come on.
Macintosh
If it's
is
that hated, why the hell are they already out?
You're bringing like a red herring to the argument, though, Gordon.
How's that?
Apple has dominance in the marketplace for mobile products, not for their desktops. They have a sliver of the market.
What?
on
I thought
desktops.
Macintoshes were dominating, right?
No, now you're just like being facetious.
No, really. I mean,
Also, I think those
I'm
Windows.
just saying.
Anyways, the point is, it's on for Windows 8. My point is, Windows 8. Gordon's argument was that they can put this out there. It doesn't matter if we like it or not. It'll be dominant. So if they try this with Xbox, then we'll really see how the market reacts to this. That'll be interesting.
Well, I think if that was their disposition, then they wouldn't be doing the blue update at all. They would just say, "You don't like it? I don't care."
No, I'm not saying they're saying you don't care. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter. It'll still be the dominant. I'd love to see numbers from Dell, HP, the real big boys. How many PCs they're selling? How many copies of Windows 8 they're selling versus copies of Windows 7?
Well, I think Windows 8 is unavoidable at this point if you're buying a pre-built machine.
Right.
So.
Sure. And there'll be 380 million new computers sold this year.
I've said I made that mention to you too, Gordon. That people are buying up. People are upgrading to Windows 8. It's like because they don't have a choice, and you go, yeah, well, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. My argument is you have no choice. What are you going to do? And also, I mean, people are. I'm just saying that you won't. The numbers will they will flat out surprise you when Windows 8 has just kicked the crap out of everything.
Okay.
And it's not because it's a great
on record
OS.
now.
Noted, it's being noted that
As far as market
200,
share,
baby.
We're gonna call
one
this-
day you will be looking at a headline on Maximum PC going, Windows 8 market share outnumbers every single copy of OS 10 and Linux install base out there, right?
Well,
And then it'll surpass.
it probably
XP
does
and
already.
What I was going to say earlier, Gordon, is it's very possible that this could be just like Vista, where Microsoft could sort of quickly come out with
Windows
a
9.
new Windows 9 and just sort of sweep it under the rug and just go moving on. Back.
Windows 7 is Vista, right? For the most part, it is a fixed version of Vista, right?
okay.
So there will be a fixed version of Windows 8, Windows 8.1, 8.
Well,
2.
what's the things that are broken with Windows 8 are pretty integral to the way the system works. With Windows Vista, we had glitches, like you couldn't get your printer to work on a network, and
Sure, all the drivers are broken.
blue screens.
Vista is
Windows 8
Windows 8 is not Vista.
Yeah, Windows 8 has been a polished experience. It's just the subjective decisions that they made that are disagreeable with a lot of people.
Right, and that is my argument, is that Microsoft, Intel, everybody is freaked out over mobile. It's all about mobile. It's about smartphones and tablets. So Microsoft is doing Windows 8 because what are you going to do? You're going to go out and buy a Mac for $500 at Costco? No, you're not going to do that, right? You're going to buy this
You're
Windows
going to buy a
PC.
Surface?
No, I'm just saying you don't have for desktop users, and I'm not saying I like Windows 8. In fact, I was taunting people here about installing Windows 8 on their home machines. But I'm saying it's still going to be the OS that ends up winning. And what I'm saying here is that they don't care about the desktop users. They don't care about laptop users right now. The only thing they care about is doing something to get into tablets and smartphones.
Okay.
Right? At some point, when Windows Blue 8.3, they'll fix whatever you got your gripes. Okay, we fixed it with the service pack. Fine, you're happy now. But right now, they know that you're not going to go anywhere else.
Okay.
Right?
Should we move on?
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be. Anyway, that's this. We talk about the Windows 8 so many.
We talk about it every.
Well, you
every
can.
every time
It's
we
a
come in
controversial OS, and
Yeah.
it's not.
Speaking of controversial, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so this is related to Windows 8, tablets, mobile gaming, and sort of is the desktop dying? Is it turning into a tablet? Is it turning mobile? Blah 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 blah. So the Razer Edge was a well, you know what? I'll let Jimmy tell you all about it. This is a gaming tablet that we saw at CES.
Yes.
We got it in for review. This was last month. Jimmy took a crack at it. Take it away.
So if you're watching on video, I'm actually holding up the Razer Edge right now, and we first saw it at CES, as Josh mentioned. And Razer was when I first saw it, Razer was billing it as like a tablet a console, a portable handheld, a laptop.
Can you give us just a quick rundown on the specs?
Yeah, it's running in i7. It's been a while since I actually reviewed it. It's a 640M GPU. It's got, I think, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabyte SSD. So, I mean, those are the specs. It's running, x86 Windows 8, obviously. This is the Razer Edge Pro model, so it retails for $1,450. That's $1,450, which is really expensive for a tablet. If you compare it to a laptop, that actually doesn't sound that bad. On paper, I think it sounds really really awesome. The unique transformative form factor of it, but unfortunately, when I reviewed it. It was just something that was better on paper. We ended up giving it a 5 out of 10, and I really, really wanted to like it, but there really is no reason to buy it.
At this point?
Yeah, at this point. So, the biggest selling point is that, okay, so if you look at it from the perspective as, you're getting a tablet, right? Well, it's a really compromised experience because it's using Windows 8, and Windows 8, it's I said this in the review. It's better with touch, but not with touch alone. And the reason is in desktop mode, it's terrible for touch because the icons and the little sound bars and stuff like that are really small and are clearly meant for the precision of like a keyboard and mouse. So it's just not comfortable to use as a tablet. As a tablet itself, it's actually it's pretty heavy. It's
2 pounds, is it?
It's a little over 2 pounds.
And then the cradle for the controllers is another couple pounds, I think.
Yeah, it's about another 2 pounds.
And this thing cost the controller cradle thing, whatever you want to call it. It's cost $250.
Yes.
Without the battery?
Without the battery, the battery is an additional $70.
The battery is this little rectangle thing.
Yeah, so that's another $320 if you want to get that attachment. And if you wanted to use it with the attachment, like they said, it's really really heavy, and your wrists and your forearms will start. Won't be able to keep up. I used it on the train for about an hour, and afterwards my wrists and stuff like that, weren't feeling too hot.
It's a pretty thick tablet too, right?
Yeah, it's a really thick tablet to get all that stuff in there.
It's funny because people are like, I would love to have a tablet, but they're not powerful enough, and this and that, and then you see exactly why you put these type of components into a laptop or into a tablet. It becomes super thick. It gets hot. Your battery life is total crap. I mean, it
has the same battery life as a laptop essentially. So about 2-3 hours if you're watching a movie.
No, if
it gets pretty hot too because it is. I mean, it's you got pretty beefy hardware in a relatively small form factor.
I don't really understand why. When I first saw this thing, I remember thinking like, why would I want to be? I don't really game when I'm gone. The reason that I have a PC at home is for gaming. So I have this GTX 690 and 27-inch display and blah 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 blah. It's totally awesome, So I don't really.
Yeah, I'm not much of a portable gaming person myself, but there are people that they want to carry around a PS Vita on the train and stuff like that. Unfortunately, in this form factor, it's just too heavy.
And if you want to use it as a PC and there's a receptacle thing you can get, right?
Yeah. So actually, I mean, they were going to release a keyboard dock as well. It's not out yet. Supposedly it's coming out in Q3 of this year. We don't know how much it will cost or when exactly it'll be releasing, so we can't really talk about that yet, which is unfortunate because the thing is really dying for a keyboard. One of the things that you will need that is a necessity for the device is the keyboard dock.
And that costs
$100, which isn't, it's one of the cheaper peripherals. But the reason you need it is because, let's say you wanted to game. Well, if you didn't have the keyboard dock, which also acts as a stand, then you kind of have to just leave the...
I'm having some trouble there putting it back in the cradle.
That's cool. You just kind of have to... let's see if I can get this out. You kind of just have to... I mean, let's say you didn't have the dock, so you hook up a keyboard and mouse, which you're going to have to do via Bluetooth because this thing only has one USB port.
Yeah, you could use a hub, but still, then it's just more devices you have to carry around.
Yeah, it's upside down, by the way.
Would you say that's what
probably
hurt
not
it
gonna
most?
do
You didn't get a keyboard with it? I mean, it really does seem like
Didn't
you
really
need a
get much of
keyboard
anything
mouse.
with it.
That was the part that seemed really bizarre when it was first announced. Was they were like, "Here's the tablet. Oh, you want all these extra parts, like these,
Yeah.
this and that. Oh, those
Yeah.
aren't even ready yet. Number one, number two, they're super expensive. It was just like,
Yeah.
what?
They gave us a bunch of stuff, but the base model doesn't really come with much of anything, really.
Yeah. So I mean,
And the base model is 1450. Well, this one is 1450.
is the keyboard the biggest detractor? I would say it should have one, but that's not. It's a combination of things. It's like, well, okay, let's say you do go out and buy a dongle, like a USB dongle, and you have a wireless keyboard and mouse. That's okay, that solves the issue. I'm sure that costs you a little bit more, but okay, that's done with. Then, well, are you gonna game with the tablet, flat on the desk like this? So I'm just putting the tablet on the table if you're just listening to the podcast. Well, no, you're gonna hurt your neck after just staring at it for so long because it doesn't have a stand on the back like the Surface RT
Yeah.
and the Pro does, or most of these form factors are actually convertibles that can turn it into a full-fledged laptop. This thing you can't. So you actually need to buy the dock. And then if you buy the dock, well, there goes your portability because now you're carrying around a big keyboard, a mouse, and you have the dock, and then you're putting the keyboard and mouse into the dock, which the dock supports 3 additional USB ports. And by that point, basically you're playing on a desk. And why not buy a laptop that will cost less and be more powerful?
And you kind of wouldn't want a kickstand anyway because this device is relatively heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel. Yeah, I
You could probably break the kickstand if you knock the tablet.
well, I don't know if it's that heavy, but it will certainly add to the bulk of it.
Would you blame part of this on Microsoft? Because Windows 8, you really, you even on the Surface RT, you get forced into a desktop mode. There's just times
Right.
where this, actually, I guess if we were pure tablet OS interface, you might be okay with it, right? If you didn't need a keyboard, but Windows 8, you will need a keyboard at one point.
Well, it has an on-screen
Or,
keyboard, right?
I mean,
Windows 8. Like, how does that work in practice?
Well, not even just a keyboard, but also you need control over a mouse,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. So
Trackpad.
I'm actually borrowing this from Tech Radar, but when I had it configured before and I had Steam Big Picture mode on it, which I installed, which I try to use because this thing Razer builds the Razer Edge is a Steam box. If you try to use it with just touch alone, you really can't in Steam Big Picture mode because it's not optimized for touch, not for Windows 8 Touch anyways.
Right.
So
But that's Steam's fault, I guess.
yeah, that's Steam's fault. But they
Razer-
advertise it as
Yeah.
like a Steam box, right?
With
So-
Steam pre-installed.
It's not. I mean, it's not their fault, and I didn't knock them for it in the review. But it's an interesting thing to talk about in the podcast. So if you have like Steam Big Picture mode enabled, and you want to try to swipe through games, it's really difficult. And one thing that I encountered was that I could not get past the age gate in certain mature games. So like let's say you're playing Dishonored or something like that, and in Steam Big Picture mode, it'll ask you, enter what year you were born in, and it'll present you with a drop down menu that begins in like 2013, and then when you click the drop down menu down, it goes down to 2007. Well, obviously, if you select 2007, you're not at least 18 years old, so you need to scroll down further, right? But the problem is, because it's not optimized for touch, you can't actually scroll down past 2007. You can't scroll down at all. So you can't get past the age gate, and you can't play your game. Obviously, you can fix this by going into desktop mode and doing it that way, or hooking up a mouse while in Big Picture mode, but it's just totally clunky and cumbersome, so... Yeah, there's a lot that I want to like about it, but it's just unfortunately, it's not all there yet. Sure, there's some Windows 8 issues. It's not optimized in Steam and stuff like that as well. Things that are outside of Razer's control. But also, I'd be interested. I'm glad that Razer did this because I think that there could be a future for it. Maybe with Haswell coming out,
Or
and it's
whatever's beyond Haswell, because it doesn't seem like it has quite enough graphics horsepower, right?
I mean, who knows? Until we get it. Let's say Haswell is equivalent to what this thing has, which is a 640M.
True.
Then this thing could be a lot smaller. It could be a lot lighter, less power consumptive.
Yeah.
I admire their ambition, though. Nobody else is doing this kind of thing or even trying.
Yeah, you got to give it to Razer. I mean, this is unique. Especially, a lot of smaller guys, they'll go to the factory and China. They'll order the laptop, they'll stick their sticker on it, and they'll call it whatever. This is actually something they spend a lot of money and R&D on to make. So
It's kind of reminds me, though, it kind of reminds me of the Project Shield from Nvidia. It's like you look at it as a gamer and a hardcore, as a hardware person, you're like, cool, all right, interesting. And then you're like, do you want to use it? And you're like, not really.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you're not gonna know with Project Shield until you actually get it, because we don't know how it's.
Do you really? I mean, like I am pretty cynical because I doubt I'm going to walk into a room and see a bunch of people sitting there with this little teeny thing in their hand, the screen flip.
It's not so teeny. That's the problem, though. It's kind of big and.
Well, it's like an Xbox controller. It's backpackable. You're not going to slip it into your breast pocket, right?
No, you're not going to. You're not even going to put it into a pocket. It'll go into a backpack.
Yes.
Right.
It's actually a little bit bigger than an Xbox controller.
Yeah, but
how much do those things cost?
We don't know yet.
Nobody knows yet.
They're shielding that information.
The question is, did we talk about this? What's the actual point where Shield is actually compelling, as far as price? I've been saying
we talked about
$250. Did we talk about it, right?
We talked about it outside the podcast.
Yeah, but here I'm saying Shield at $250. It's like, wow, that's actually, because it's not just this thing where
it's going to be like $500 probably.
I don't know, but what if it's $250?
It transmits to your TV, right? Like something.
Right. It's a standalone Android device, but if you have a GeForce card, you can also stream over wireless to the device.
We already have some Android phones that can stream to your TV.
Yeah, but this is not the same. This is actually you streaming from your real video card, PC gaming to your TV through Project Shield.
Right. You need a 600 series
Right.
GPU to do that, which is, I don't know, I don't really get it, because I think their kind of messaging is a little muddled too, because it's like, oh yeah, you can get the Project Shield and then you can stream from your 600 series video card to this thing, but then they're also coming out with Nvidia Grid as well,
right?
Which you can stream to your Nexus 7. So like, why buy a Grid then?
Well,
why buy Shield? I can't keep up with the names.
It sounds like it could be pretty handy if you could get wireless to work. You could just sit down on your couch and play your PC game in your living room while your PC is in the PC room.
Yeah, I actually think it's hard to explain to people what it is, but I actually personally think it's pretty cool if it's priced right.
I mean, we talked about this earlier, and Chris, our intern, thought $250 was like way too expensive. I think $250.
Really? Yeah.
I think $250 is generous. I don't think they'll go that low.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the lowest they'll go is $300, maybe $350.
Right, but I mean, anything over $350, then it gets to be a little tougher. The screen. I mean, and also where's the hardware to justify? You're not looking at a super dense pixel screen that's 8 inches or 10 inches wide.
There's also a latency issue, even over fast wireless.
There is, but the demos that we had.
I played with. I didn't play with. Well, I kind of played with the Shield, but when I played with the Shield, I played Android games, which were actually on the hard drive or whatever that's on the device. But I did play with Grid at CES on a Nexus 7, and we played Battlefield, and it was streaming, and it was. I mean, I tried my best to like see if I could run around really fast and shoot and kind of just like create latency, and I could not. It was very impressive.
Yeah. It's really good, and it's definitely a lot better than Intel's Wide-Eye. I mean, definitely the versions that I've tried using USB to control Wide-Eye, and this sort of similar technology. Whereas if you have a Centrino chipset, you can actually basically display anything from your laptop on your TV if you buy this device you hook up to your TV. But the latency is a killer for gaming. Fine for media streaming, a lot of that other stuff, but gaming is not quite there yet.
Right.
All right, we are going to be moving on quickly here to some reader questions. I'm going to start on Twitter. There's some douchebag here that's called the David Murphy, and he says, "Why is David Murphy so awesome?" I think we all know the answer is that he's not awesome. So sorry, David.
What?
Number 2, Wesley Rourke, Sega Dude 3000 says, "Can I give Gordon a bro hug?" Do you do hugs, Gordon?
I think we charge for that.
Did you guys see
all the revenue streams?
We're renting Gordon out. You probably saw it on our website.
I somehow just crashed this thing. All I was doing is plugging it into the dock. And now
you didn't plug it in right.
Now I'm getting the blue screen.
Let me see.
If you can see this on camera.
It's not good.
Oh, no, it already
restarted. Screen of death.
Oh, I've never seen that before.
Samuel Guriachi asks, "What happened at the end of BioShock?"
Oh no! Don't talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about it. We can't talk about it.
I'm playing it.
I mean, we can talk about the mechanics of
all
the
I can
game,
say. All I can say, Sam, is
it's very story driven.
Yeah.
Please don't say anything because I don't want to know.
No, all I can say is that he asks his question is WTF? What the fuck? And that's pretty much what you think when the game ends. You're just like,
thanks, Josh. I wasn't sure what that stood for.
All your
we can tell them where to go to find answers.
No, let's move on. All right,
Okay.
what are your actually here?
Well, actually, I mean, if we can't talk about the game, or we can talk about the game separately, or
We'll talk about it separately after everyone's had a chance to play it. All right, here we go. This is a Rockshot. Sean M asks, is there a service or app that would replace my 128K MP3s with 320K? I have gigs of music to rip. I do not want to re-rip them all.
No, you have to re-rip them.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could probably go down to 320, but you're not going to go up.
can I get this DVD to convert to Blu-ray?
It's a lossy. It's what's called a lossy format. So there's actually data that's been lost that you can't recreate.
It might actually sound kind of cool, though.
You have to go back to the original source.
But wait, you mean like somehow up sampling 128 to 320?
Well, I mean, hell, nobody even sings on key anymore. It's all auto-tuned. So how could you even tell?
128 kilobytes per second or kilobits per second is actually not that bad, unless you have a pretty high-end sound machine, audio thing going on.
Sound card.
Sorry. So yeah, this
Sound machine.
so Rockshot.
It's like Quentin Turnbull.
You're out of luck. Just
Technical jargon.
Yeah, see if you can get it done. All right, Christopher Ling, Lin Performance asks, he's looking for a board for AMD A8 3870K for an AMD Vision Black build. Do you have any recommendations?
I haven't actually been following the FM sockets too closely, and I do kind of question I personally think if you want an FM socket, FM1, FM2, you really should be going a mini ITX. If you're doing full ATX and I think it's a little odd to look for performance and A8. I mean, at that point, just do an AM3 part or do a 1155. Because, I mean, why do that? You can get more cores. AM3, I just don't see it.
Yeah, their APUs are more for entry-level computers that don't have GPUs.
Right. So why build a performance build around an A8 part? I'd rather do it around an FX part. Or, obviously a Ivy Bridge.
All right, Nerf Castle asks, what processor is best for playing the game Minecraft and graphics card? You guys have any experience with that?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by best? I mean, Glenn, my son, plays on an old Core 2 Duo laptop with a GeForce 73, 7 series mobile part.
So you should be able to play on like Ivy Bridge integrated then,
You can actually play on integrated. You can play on...
it scales more than the CPU than the GPU, doesn't it, Minecraft?
Well, here's the thing. So I only know this, of course, because Glenn is so into Minecraft, but there are guys who do their YouTube videos, and there's one guy, Captain Sparkles. This guy's running like a 3960X and a 2690s. Okay?
Wow.
So
To play Minecraft?
To play Minecraft.
How many instances? Like, how many dozens?
No, he plays one instance. He records a video, and I mean, I'm sure they're like at 4K plus or something like that. And he's got a massive following. He could probably buy our company and just hire us.
Oh well,
but
more power to him, I guess.
But yeah, so it scales up or scales down. Honestly, you don't need that much. You could obviously play it on a laptop with the current integrated graphics if you wanted to.
All right, so we're going to jump over to Facebook while we're waiting for one more question to come in here from Clever Mind. He says he'll be right back. All right, so any reason this is from Wesley Rourke on Facebook, any reason somebody who has a discrete sound card from a few years ago would want to upgrade right now to a brand new one?
Drivers would probably be the only reason.
I think most people here don't even use sound cards. Gordon's kind of holding out with that one.
I still use a sound card.
Actually, Gordon gave me a sound card. I'm using it at the Creative Labs one.
This is how he sort of slowly tries to win people over to his side of things by just slowly bringing them. So he'll start with Jimmy. Next thing you know, you'll be hanging out at lunch with Tom, going, "Hey Tom, what you got?"
Wait, so you run only integrated?
Some of these sound cards have headphone amplifiers, which are actually really handy for large professional cans. I guess a little bit bigger than these, because if you have large headphones or professional studio headphones, and you're trying to plug it into a regular sound card headphone jack, you just
wait. This is not a sound card versus discrete argument. This is if you have a sound card from a couple of years ago, should you upgrade to a new card right now?
I think the only reason I would upgrade is if the drivers are broken, and there are some older sound cards where they're starting to leave them behind. They may not get Windows 8 drivers. They may not get everything. But I honestly, I still run an XFi at home. I love my XFi. Yeah,
the problem you probably have too is eventually if you upgrade. Like I used to have a PCI card in my lab. I had a Holland system at home, and I had a PCI FireWire reader, and I upgraded to Z77, and boop, no more PCI, gone. So it's like Shit, I just switched to USB 3 from. But I mean, that's progress, I guess. But yeah, you'll find your add-in cards dropping out as you start upgrading your motherboards too.
Right. So yeah, I would probably, if it works and you've got drivers, stick with it. Because usually they get better. Well, although I'm not sure.
And some motherboards have integrated XFi, like the.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of noise. You're still down on that motherboard with all the wires running. It gets pretty tough.
How does a sound card from like 10 years ago compare to like integrated sound today?
From 10 years ago?
Yeah, because I've got like an old. I don't know if it's 10 years ago. I guess it's my own question, but I think I have like a
Monster
old,
3D
Audigy or something.
I was like cleaning my my closet, and I was going through my like shoe little shoe bins and stuff like that, and I noticed I had some like old gear, and like one of the things was like an old sound card. I don't remember what year it was in, but
well, usually the problem is they've discarded the drivers, and you're not going to be able to get support for a lot of those very old cards. Like it'd be cool if you can get an REL to work. So
getting support for old, I used to be a technician, PC technician. People would bring old cards in, trying to get them repaired, and it was an unbelievable nightmare trying to find drivers. So unbelievably difficult.
Right, and then sometimes you think you've got the right driver, and it's actually the wrong driver.
All right, Glenn's son asks, what do the Maximum PC podcasters personally use and recommend for hard drive backup? I just had a WD 7200 RPM disk fail, and the data recovery service are running $500. I need to make sure this does not happen again in the future. Tom?
I actually haven't backed up my data lately, so I'm probably not a good example of that. I put all my important stuff like in the cloud, like on Google Drive, and it's mostly just documents. So.
Yeah. I've actually, this may come as a surprise to some people, I've actually never had a hard drive fail.
You need to buy more hard drives.
No, I consider myself fortunate in that aspect. But I do have this old, 500 gigabyte external hard drive that I keep some of my important documents on.
There's SyncBack free. We've mentioned that one a few times, which is free and does a lot of syncing and backup.
Right. For what I do, for my backup, I actually have, for the machines I have, so every new machine I build, I add a second hard drive, and I just set up, Windows 7. Even Vista actually has the backup and restore utility is really not bad. You can set a restore point. You can basically tell it, backup every night, every few days. So every machine has basically a hard drive of similar or larger capacity backing it up. And then also I have a Windows Home server that, every night at 2 o'clock in the morning will fire up the machine and back up the data from the box.
I personally, I've covered storage for a long time for Maximum PC. I'm a photographer, so I've got a lot of storage needs, and I've had hard drives fail. I've had CF cards fail. I've been through data loss. I've been through apartment fires. I used to do data recovery for clients.
The fire he started.
I did not start the fire. Gordon's full of shit. But I've
always been burning.
This whole situation about data recovery, and I used to do data recovery for clients. I feel like I'm immersed in this topic. So basically, what happens is that no data is really safe. If you really want data to be safe, it's not safe unless it's in usually 3 locations.
Wow.
Usually, because let's say you have an internal hard drive in your computer, and that's when whatever's on that computer is being backed up onto the external hard drive on your desktop. That's great that they're backed up, but then this is what happened to me when I was in Texas. Was one day there was an apartment fire, and they literally knocked on everyone's door, pounded on our door, and said, "Everyone, you have to leave you have to run outside right now. Run outside." So luckily we had about a minute until the fire department got, and I actually unplugged my desktop tower and grabbed it in my arms and ran outside with it, like the proverbial save your porn, must save porn guy.
Yeah.
So I grabbed that, set it down, and then that's when it hit me. I had all my data was backed up to an external hard drive sitting on my desktop.
Oops.
But a lot of people in our apartment complex who weren't home that day or weren't able to do that, were not able to run in and grab their entire desktop tower. So, anyways, my point is that a lot of them lost their entire apartments to fire. So if that would have happened, I would have been, wouldn't have made no sense at all to have a backup locally, none.
Right, and actually that is the last resort I have is I upload all of the family photos to a website. Smug Mug, which I love.
Smug Mug, yeah.
It's nice because, the chances of you getting taken out and Smug Mug and all their backups being taken out is pretty rare.
Right. So the main rule is if you don't want it to be, if you absolutely can't stand to lose it, it needs to be in 3 places. So personally, whenever I have data drives in my computer at home that are backed up to basically the exact same drive. So I've got 2 3 terabytes and I have 2 4 terabytes, and they just mirror each other using I use sync back like Tom mentioned every night. I just sync the drives together. And then my OS is not backed up. I've got an SSD. I don't back up my OS drive at all. I just back up what's on my desktop to one of my other drives, and then I use Backblaze. I'm the one who wrote the Backblaze versus Crash Plan head-to-head, and I ended up liking Crash Plan better, but I already have multiple terabytes of data with Backblaze. Backblaze is pretty good, so for now I'm sticking with it. Otherwise, I'd have to start all over again. It would take me another 6 months to a year just to get all my data backed up again.
So you know what's going to happen now? Jim is going to go home, turn on his computer, hard drive's going to be crashed.
Damn you, Gordon.
That's the way it works. Don't tempt the hard drive gods. They're going to fuck with you now.
I should have mentioned it.
I had a Raptor one time in my home system as my, this is back when you just had one drive, or maybe you had one for your OS, one for your data. And I was like messing with my case, and I somehow plugged it back together and forgot to plug in the front mounted fan. And I just left my apartment and came back home, and the hard drive had failed. It had overheated and failed. So I had to reinstall my OS, get a new hard drive, everything like that. I've seen that fail. I've seen them drop, fail because of just being dropped. I've seen them, with just clicking of death. I've seen them, all kinds of stuff.
And I will point out, you did start an apartment fire in your apartment when you turned on the oven and you had stored your hair dryer in the oven.
No, that was not. That was a fire in my apartment. That's a different story than an apartment fire.
Right.
And sometimes
that is an apartment fire.
It's a fire in an apartment. That doesn't mean that the apartment building itself is on fire.
One last point. Sometimes a failed hard drive doesn't actually fail. You can put it in another computer and it'll boot up just fine for strange voodoo reasons.
Oh, so let me just add one more tip in here about your data recovery costs. So I used to do data recovery. What would happen was people would bring their hard drives into our shop and they would say my drive is I can't access it, and we would turn it on, plug it into a system, and it would make that weird clicking noise. And basically what that clicking noise is the heads just repeatedly kind of slamming up against their little stopper noise, just going ping, 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 ping. And then, so usually we could still read if the drive still shows up in the BIOS, then we can still run recovery on it. So that was our golden rule. And we had tools that software we would use that would take 2 weeks to read the contents of a drive, because it would look at a sector, and if it couldn't read the sector, it would just keep trying until it could read it. And then it would just eventually say, screw this sector, I'm moving on to the next one, and go all the way through the entire drive. Then at the end of the process, it would have it go over, and it would just retry and reread all the sectors it couldn't read the first time. So this is an extremely time-consuming process. And that process would usually be able to pull most of the data back. But if your drive is not even being recognized in the BIOS, you have to have what's on that drive. You can't take your drive to one of these bunny suit rooms. They will take the drive apart, buy a new hard drive, and then replace the components inside your hard drive. The platters themselves won't be changed, but the motor, spindle, all that stuff will be. They can swap that out for you, and your drive will be working again. It's extremely expensive.
I was about to say, that sounds really
It's
expensive.
like $2,000.
Right.
Something like that.
And actually, there's a tip we gave to a reader on hard drive recoveries maybe a couple of years ago, and he actually wrote it and said it worked. And that is, if the drive is dead, it's not showing up. If you actually have an identical drive, usually that means the controller board is taking a crap. You can actually go out and buy an identical drive and swap the board out, and comes back, and he actually did that, and it came back. He had a drive that had died like 6 years before. Just sitting around, like we all do, right? Just keep it there, hoping it's going to work one day. Swap the controller board out, actually came back, got all his data off.
Well, I would say that's one of the things where that obviously it doesn't hurt to try that because your drive isn't doing anything.
Sure.
But you have probably a pretty low success rate with that.
Yeah, but I mean, what the heck? You can get a drive off eBay for $30 and swap the controller off of it. For sure.
All right, we're going to be moving on quickly here to editor picks. You want to start, Tom?
Oh, I think my editor pick would be XCOM Enemy Unknown. I actually got that as part of the BioShock Infinite pre-order.
Nice.
And it's, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, I think it's unlikely, but it's a turn-based strategy game based around killing aliens who have invaded Earth. And I like it because it's despite being highly strategic, it's not so beardy that I get overwhelmed with all these beardy. Lots of interface buttons that aren't very clearly defined, and just way too many options first. No, it's not like that. It eases you into the style of the game and all the options and the play style quite nicely. And I like the music and everything. And it evokes the older XCOM, I think, in a respectful way.
Did you actually play the original XCOM?
A little bit, and I found this one a lot easier to play, a lot easier to understand the interface.
I have a lot of friends who are into like the tactics type of games, like FF Tactics and stuff like that. Is this game going to appeal to them?
I don't know. I actually haven't played those. I know the games you're talking about, but I don't have much experience. But yeah, I like the turn-based stuff, the turn-based strategy games. Gives me time to actually think about what I'm doing a lot more than you would if you were approaching that situation in real time. So,
what do you got, Jimmy?
I'm actually going to recommend a program that we're currently using right now, and that's the program that we're using to record the podcast. It's Audacity, and I do a lot of, I guess in my heyday, and I still do to some degree, do some music recording. And Audacity is just a free program. You can get it on like 99.com. I think I don't know if we talked about that before, but you can just Google Audacity. Yeah. It's an open source audio program, and they have like plugins for it. So if you play like guitar, like I play guitar and stuff like that, so I can hook up my guitar to my computer, record to Audacity, download these free plugins because it's open source, and can actually do some pretty cool stuff. You can add like reverb and echoes and distortion and stuff like that.
Does this mean you actually didn't have a pick before you came into the room? So you
no,
said,
I like this microphone, actually.
It's pretty wonderful.
I'm going to go with the Razer Edge. Shit.
Do you love LAMP?
No, I've been using Audacity for years, and that's been kind of something that I recommend to people in general when they're looking for like audio editing software.
Gordon's want to talk about forgetting your pick. What do you have, Gordon?
I have one, and I will say I don't like the word meme, but it is in this, and I don't understand the internet thing. But I really had a good time on quickmeme.com. Have you guys seen this? It's kind of cool because you can just make your own fucking memes.
Yeah, I've been using it for the website.
Yeah, but it's this one's pretty good. Pissed off gaming nerds. Internet no longer awesome. Right.
And this is a picture of the Microsoft.
This is a poor Adam Orth, hopefully still employed with Microsoft.
Poor guy. Could you imagine being your face being the center of a meme, like in a way that paints you as a kind of a dick in every single example?
Well, this is actually, I believe, he has this image on one of his, because you got to self-promote everything, right? Because I'm sure there's plenty of, Gordon as a fucking dickhead kind of stuff. But this is.
I'm trying to think of all the possibilities I can make memes of.
Probably created by one.
SimCity, I like this one. The most popular is SimCity turned out pretty well. Let's do the same thing. That's the top one, I think.
All right, so for my pick, I've got two things. Number one is this is a Windows 7 audio thing that was driving me absolutely crazy for a long time, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So basically, I had this situation where I would be listening to a movie or listening to some audio, and I would plug in my phone or some other device, and it would instantly lower the volume on whatever I was listening to by a pretty significant amount. Turns out that's like a default from Windows, so I just want to tell you where that is if you have the same problem. If you right-click on the microphone in Windows 7 and go to Playback Devices, you'll see under Communications, the default says reduce the volume of other sounds by 80%. The headline is when Windows detects communications activity.
So your editor's pick is the Windows 7 Playback Devices feacher?
The control panel?
No, it's
that's
the editor's picks are getting
No.
I like chairs because they hold my ass up.
No, my editor's pick is that if you're like me and when you plug something into your computer while listening to some music, it reduces the sound by 80%. It's fucking annoying. So you can check a box here that says do nothing. That's my editor's pick. And I also want to play this montage real quick. This is really good. I showed it with Gordon. This is a montage.
I had that as one. All right, go ahead.
All right, we're doing this montage. This is the Battlefield.
Montage.
It's a montage. This is the Battlefield theme. Battlefield 4 was just announced, and we got a teaser at the very end of it of what this theme music will sound like. So using this montage of history, this is historical. We can now guess what Battlefield 5's.
You might want to point this to the camera too for the viewers
it's
watching.
Just music.
Battlefield.
I think they have like screens, right? I think I've seen.
Well, there's screens, but here we go. We'll play this. Here we go.
Did we miss something?
Shh, be quiet.
Okay.
Battlefield 2.
That actually wasn't Battlefield 2.
2142.
I'm sensing a trend here. I can't see the video.
Battlefield 5.
That just sounds like a disaster.
That's a dubstep for you.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
It's pretty strange. I remember when I saw it. Well, the catch to that is Battlefield 3 when it first came out with that staticky like da-da.
I think they kind of overdid. They
No.
cranked it up.
Here, I will play it for you. Battlefield 4 at the very end. There's like 2
Battlefield
seconds.
3, you mean?
No, Battlefield 4.
Oh, okay.
trailer.
Is it? That's not made up. That's actually
That was
what's gonna
actually
sound
Battlefield 4.
No, it's in the Battlefield 4.
Let's hear it.
Well, I've got this is at the very end of 17-minute video here. Let me skip to the end.
And
This is the very end of the fishing in Baku gameplay.
I don't think I've even seen this video.
Okay, here it is. This is
Staff Sergeant done with KIA for
We have a camera there
something we
too.
already know. You have your orders, Captain. Affirmative. Steaming towards the east coast of China.
You'll back me up, right?
I thought that was fake. That really.
I thought that was fake too.
No, that's real.
Why?
Dude.
Why?
That's where that came from.
Is that like in to not be able to hear your music?
Jesus.
A lot of people had to sign off on that one. You know that, right?
What is the theme song like?
Somebody heard
Here,
that.
here. Well,
No,
now-
several people heard that and they said, that's the best possible sound we can put at the end of the video.
They have like our budget.
Of all of our
for
available
sound-
options, this is clearly
for
what we
sound
should
scores,
do.
though?
I want to hear like the London Philharmonic do that.
All right. Well, that's all we have for our editor's picks and our readers' questions. We only have one section left. Let's get into this.
And now it's time for Gordon Mah Ung's Rant of the Week.
Okay, this pisses me off. Holy shit. And that makes no sense. The people who go to eBay and pay more than retail, are they just fucking morons? Jesus Christ. Holy shit.
All right, Josh took one of the things I was going to complain about, which is the fucking Battlefield theme. But luckily, I got an email from I don't know his name. I would say his name, but his name is Neil, right? So Neil sent me an email just as we were actually in the podcast. I will go ahead and use his complaint. He says, "Hey, Gordon, I want to tell you about an experience at the Apple store I recently had. I walked into... See, now, I'm not complaining. This is a reader complaining, okay? I walked in to get an iPhone replacement. I paid the extra fee for Apple Care Plus, which I now learn means you get extra fucked over for only $50 more. With regular Apple Care, we just get the regular fucking over. Pay extra money, and we'll send a genius to your house to kick you in the nuts. That's Apple for you. I was told that I could not talk to one of the geniuses. I now needed an appointment. Fine. I drove 2 hours. Who the fuck? You're eating a mint? Can't you
I
was really
was
loud.
checking to see what was in my but I didn't know
Why
it was
is
going
it
to be
so
that
loud?
loud. I did not
Like,
know.
sound like
Don't eat your Doritos
It's almost
during
as loud as the end.
Gordon's gonna rant about this now.
Yeah, what the fuck? Don't eat the Doritos.
Okay. I'm sorry. Please
That
continue.
was the Battlefield theme.
I know.
Why are you creating the Battlefield theme in your pocket?
That's what it's 5 guys sitting in a room eating a fucking bag of Doritos. That's how they made the Battlefield theme, okay?
It was actually us, just in here.
We wanted
Wait.
to surprise it.
So fine, I just drove 2 hours. 2 hours.
Oh, that's you, Gordon.
Yeah, that's
damn
me
it.
because I'm like,
Yeah, it's his
why the
phone.
hell?
It's a tricorder.
It's silenced. All right, I'm trying to hide my fucking
God.
code.
You're one to yell at
Gordon's
somebody.
code
who knows.
is-
Wait. I drove 2 hours to see these jerks, but fine, let's make an appointment. Oh, sorry, no appointments until tomorrow. Are you joking?
You don't just drive
How does
to-
that make sense, Gordon? A customer walks into a retail phone store and gets told, I need an appointment. I'm not seeing a heart surgeon. I just want warranty service on my effing phone. So that's not
So
me.
that's a major problem with this is one of the biggest things that's bullshit about Apple is you can't just walk into their stores and make an appointment. You have to go online and you have to go online first. It sucks.
Yeah, so that's from a reader, so it's not just me. All right, wait. Let me. So this is one.
Wait, but wouldn't you what do you tell his reader, Gordon? He has an iPhone. What do you tell him?
Don't. Okay, here's what you do. Now,
what I'm saying.
Now here's the classic. Here's your response. You should just take your phone, have them warranty it, right? and then look the guy in the face, throw the new fucking warranted phone on the ground, and stomp it to shit right in their face, right? Because that is a Josh move. Don't you think that's what Josh would do? Fucking like, fuck your phone.
Like that guy today who didn't have a fucking bag for me at lunch.
Yeah, that was kind of... Yeah, he almost was going to run out of that truck and beat you to death with the falafel.
He did not like the concept of giving you a bag for your items that you bought at the lunch truck. Anyways.
Yeah, it's lame.
No, well, here's another one, okay? So that we have this thing where somebody brings in pastries, and you can't just bring in one fucking pastry. You got to bring in donuts or pastries for everybody, right? So we helped Josh. We all voted for his cat thing. Well, I won't get into that. He finally brings in the victory pastries. And then he's like, at like 2 o'clock, he's like, okay, nobody's eating the rest of these pastries. I'm gonna give them away. It's like, no, it's too. We might fucking eat these pastries.
Hey, I wasn't aware that there was a 4:30 cutoff for pastries.
No, it shouldn't be 4:30. It's the next day.
I wasn't even
Somebody
there.
has to make
Jimmy
sure
didn't even get his
When
fucking
I did my-
pastries are not stale.
Here's what happened. I brought everyone here voted for me in this online thing. I was really appreciative. I went out and bought pastries for everybody.
Yes.
I brought them
Photography
in.
contest.
We're talking chocolate contest. Yeah, photography contest. For chocolate croissants. I mean, it was the high-end shit, too. This was $50 worth of pastries.
It's a gourmet
This
shit.
shit was
You
gonna
didn't
get
have to
you
break
fucked
the
up.
It was
gourmet
fucking
shit
good.
out on us. Yes.
$50 for croissants?
I paid
What?
$50 for all that shit.
I don't believe it. I want to see the receipt.
You ever tried... This is... all right.
Okay, well, even it was
Your eyes
$50.
Here's the
Back in your
thing.
head.
Yeah, this is the highest end croissants you could possibly fathom, right?
Croissant.
So I bring them to work. Everyone starts eating them. Blah blah blah. And then around 11 o'clock, people kind of come back, circle around a second time, take another nibble off of a scone or whatever. But then at 2 o'clock, I look over and notice there's like another croissant still sitting there, and I just wanted to make sure it was eaten, not forgotten. So I was like, "Are somebody gonna eat this? Because I want to make sure."
Yeah.
And then Gordon got all in my shit about it.
Yeah, because it's like fucking McDonald's, right? You're like, what? It's not like 10:35. You go to 10:35. You want your fucking sausage McMuffin. It's not there, right? They're like,
Yeah.
no, we can't.
They
It's like
slap
I
your
see it right there. You put it in the box. Give me that fucking sausage. They won't do it.
My
Josh is like, oh no, hey, well,
They made a movie about that
2:30.
too, didn't they? The Kirk Douglas.
It's true though.
Right,
I mean,
but
what
Gordon-
the hell?
Michael
Gordon-
Douglas.
Gordon, you're operating under a secret office rule that you wait till 4:30 before you take any action on a pastry, which I've never been briefed on. It was not in my employee
I'm just
introduction.
saying-
It wasn't in my fucking packet.
It just people might want to eat it for a late afternoon snack. You don't have to McDonald's us.
Gordon, all you have to do is say to me, "Do you know, Josh? Normally we wait till around 4:30 before we make any decisions on the future of these pastries." And I'm thinking about having it later, and I would say, "All right, thanks, Gordon."
Very heated.
You have to
Instead,
draw the
Gordon-
line somewhere else.
And then it's like a
Next thing you
$12
know-
croissant.
Next-
You could leave it to $5.
Next time you pay $100 for a croissant, all right, we'll see how you like leaving it out all day.
Right. I'm
If
just saying.
if we don't have some semblance of order, homeless people are going to start wandering in and looking for food. Well,
ants will come in.
you
Yes.
know,
Hey, I had to fucking drive to the mission and then wait in line
we'll have
for a long time.
wild
for
dogs
those
wandering
pastries.
around the hallways looking for people to eat, and you just can't have that.
They were pretty good though.
Damn, I can't believe I have a McDonald's thing in the Twitter feed. What the hell? That's a weird thing.
My problem with McDonald's is when you get there at 10:15, you want some French fries, and they're still serving breakfast, and they're like, "Sorry, we're not serving breakfast right now."
Who eats
You're
fries?
like nobody eats fries at 10 o'clock.
I do.
It's all about the hash browns, man.
Hash browns are pretty good.
I thought you guys were on my team. So I was wrong.
Yeah, that, you know. It's
Yeah,
like-
I've got to say, I've never heard anybody had that issue before. They come out at the 10:15 and then
yeah, it's always
it's always the
way.
opposite. Yeah.
Nobody wants
If
to eat
you-
McDonald's food. They only want to eat their breakfast.
If you're working a night
It's not
shift
food.
and you're getting off, that might be a time of day when you would get off from work, and
Yeah.
you know, you're like, I could use like dinner right now, even though it's like 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and you can't go to McDonald's to get that, and it's
There's other places. You
it's
can go.
un-American. It really is.
So my friend actually likes. My friend and I both actually like the McDonald's breakfast better than their regular thing.
Everybody likes
But the
McDonald's
with what my friend says is, you know, I said that they should extend that right to like 11 noon or whatever. Just have it all
Right.
day. Just have it all day, right? And he was saying no, they shouldn't do that. And I was like, why? Because I was like, I know you like it too. I know you like the breakfast too. And he goes, because it's more special that way. It's kind of
Well,
like the
I-
White Castle. Like it's
thought-
hard to obtain.
I thought they did it like that because their kitchens are not large enough to serve both
They
breakfast
just
and
microwave
lunch
this shit
all day
anyway,
long.
don't they? It's just like it comes out of this crate.
I guess the facilities just can't do both at the same time.
You know what we should do is we should start a business where we go into McDonald's and we just buy all of the sausage, McMuffins, and breakfast foods all day, and then we sell them at our McDonald's-like restaurant all day. Right?
McDonald's?
So yeah, McDougal's. So then now you want your whatever your sausage McMuffin, you can get it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon from McDougal's.
Yes.
And there's nothing that can stop you. You're legally buying the fucking thing.
O'Donnell's. We should call it O'Donnell's.
O'Donnell's. And it would be like $12 for the sausage McMuffin.
We have to do a, speaking of Gordon's rants, in case you guys missed it and you're listening to this podcast, Jimmy and our intern Chris, they put together a podcast of just all of Gordon's rants from last year. Every single one.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That was Chris.
Okay.
That's rough. You got to listen to all that.
I would never listen to it
That's
personally.
probably why he was cursing and shouting at us in the last podcast.
So anyways, if you like Gordon's rant and you want to hear all of last year's just in a row, or maybe you're like feeling suicidal or something like that.
You know what we should do is like an all Star Wars one. We take every podcast, and then we could do this. We can torture Chris with this. We take every podcast. He has to listen to every one. Cut out every Star Wars content and make one gigantic Star Wars podcast.
Wait, does Chris hate Star Wars?
No, I'm just saying. Could you imagine listening to the hundreds of hours of people just
that would
droning on about nothing?
You know why Chris? Do you know Chris didn't come in yesterday? And when I texted him to ask him why he didn't come in, you know what he told me?
He's sick of us?
He was sick. He has a cold.
Of us. I'm sick of you guys.
Yeah, total bullshit. All right.
Wait, I still got one more. All right. We'll have to save it for next time, and just keep your list, Gordon. I've got some stuff here too about IT departments. All right.
We could talk about Windows 8 again.
No. So that's the end of our episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You know what's funny? This piece of paper I have in front of me here was written about 2 months ago, and it says we have 255 ratings on iTunes. Now we're up to 356. So I really appreciate you guys going there and leaving us a rating. It takes 2 seconds. We really appreciate it. I read every one of them.
I have been spending a lot of time creating fake email accounts.
Good job, Gordon. I didn't know you... Anyways. All right, so that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to be part of our show, follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Friend us on Twitter. You can send questions there. We always announce when we're coming in here. Maybe your question will get on the show. If you want to call and leave a voicemail for us, our number is 877-404-1337. That's 877-404-1337, extension 1337. Leave us a really brief, to-the-point email. If it's good, we'll play it on the show. Email us at maximumpcpodcast@gmail.com. You can subscribe to the magazine, Google Play. We're on iTunes, Kindle. We're on Nook. We're on Zinio. Those are all digital. And, of course, we are still in print as well.
There's nowhere you can't find us.
If you can believe
that.
For
better or worse.
We are all over the internet. So that's our show, number 200. We'll be checking out, look around for the video version too. I guess it'll be in the blog post when we post this. So on behalf of Jimmy Thang, Tom McNamara, and Gordon Ung, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.